Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Man, have we been kicking butt and taking names all over the Second Amendment, and the Supreme Court has been good to us. If you have not been paying attention to the stuff and you may be relying on me solely for your sole source of information, I would tell you that I sometimes miss things, and sometimes you should probably check out everyone in this space, especially Mark with Four Boxes Diner, Guns and Gadgets. They do some good stuff. Washington Gun Law. These are sources I use for a lot of New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union stuff for what I talk about, and I use them for tonight specifically. So how are we winning? Well, back in the gap, a little bit ago, we had the Bruen decision and the Heller decision. And when they both passed, I was one of the ones that was like, well, this didn't go far enough. Fast forward to now. Okay, so what the Bruen decision basically states is that they have to show historical precedent that there was gun regulation, not just gun law, but gun regulation for passing gun laws now. That means that they have to go back to the founding of our country and the founding document, the Constitution itself, and have supporting evidence to come up and say, hey, here's where the federal government or where there was regulation to kind of do something similar to what we're trying to do now. And it isn't working because there is no such thing. We know this. If you're in the 2A community and you're happy to be in the 2A community, I met some more people, reconnected with more people, I should say, from the 2A this weekend and in my friend group, of which it was great hooking up with them and talking guns. But anyway, I digress. What is interesting is about what's going on is following the Rahimi case. So if you don't know what the Rahimi v. Garland case is, Rahimi is this defendant that was kind of a bad dude. He was a criminal, a misdemeanor criminal more specifically though. But they brought this case up to, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court now, where they were trying to disarm him because of his misdemeanors that he had. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into the nuance of the situation. I'm not so sure that a lot of us in the 2A community wouldn't support the federal government in this case because this guy kind of is a turd. However, what's more important is that they found for Rahimi. And what this means is that if you are ever convicted of a misdemeanor, they're basically saying they cannot strip away your rights. Now, this is important for a number of reasons, especially with these red flag laws and yellow flag laws that they're all trying to push around right now, is it allows you to maintain your rights despite what the federal government and most local governments like New Mexico have been trying to push for a while now. Now, there's some call still from people to do red flag laws. I personally think that red flag laws are kind of useless. I kind of think they're odious. They're really, really burdensome on the law enforcement agents that have to deal with them. And how do you judge someone to be nuts, especially when we don't have a real good mental health evaluation system? So you put someone into a mental health evaluation, and does that instantly take away their guns? Maybe they're just having a bad time. Either way, I can understand the arguments for both. Given the situation that we've seen time and time again where guns are used in bad situations, it makes a lot of sense that they would have a lot more people going through the system to get a mental health evaluation, because there's a lot of mental health issues out there right now, and that's what I still believe is the biggest problem with guns right now. And I say not a problem, but a problem with perception of guns. These people that are using them have no check on themselves if they're nuts. This last shooting that was happening in Massachusetts, guy had a mental health breakdown, was in the system. He was so ordered by his commanding officer to get a health evaluation. They involuntarily committed him. And yet he was still able to have firearms despite having a yellow flag law, which means that these guys consistently, and I say these guys, the government, the law enforcement agencies, all of these guys in the chain here, failed to do their job and by statute and actually prosecute a warrant of some kind to stop this man and prohibit him from doing something really heinous and evil. This goes back to the shooting that happened in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, the Parkland shooting. If you have been a student of this stuff, if you've ever been affected by gun violence at a school, a mass shooting, quote-unquote mass shooting, you start looking really, really deeply at where the failings are and how maybe we could possibly fix this. Up to the point where there was a point after December 7th, 2017, where I considered siding with some of the gun the gun banning people, because this personally came knocking on my door. But after a lot of investigation, a lot of soul searching on my part, you realize that people that are nuts do stupid things, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we need to address that more so than we need to address the gun, because there is not enough people or resources for people going through mental health issues to be addressed. There was a point in time we had asylums and you could commit someone who is really nuts. And I think that the lack of such resources nowadays is contributing to a lot of other social ills we're seeing in our country. So to see them side for Rahimi, or however you say it, is kind of a good thing for us. But over this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, the regulations or the decisions came out, and we all should be cheering for a number of reasons. Let's talk about the big one, Mock v. Garland. So Mock v. Garland, if you paid attention to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union and you're a regular listener, first off, thank you. But second off, this is the pistol brace rule. Okay. So we have been grinding away on this in the community, in the 2A community, wondering why they're going to regulate something that is so mundane. It doesn't make the gun more deadly. It doesn't make it more concealable, despite what they're trying to say. It just kind of makes pistol caliber, or rifle caliber pistols. I keep getting that backwards, even though I'm coining the phrase. Rifle caliber pistols more usable to the end user. Okay? They banned them because one idiot used them in a shooting, and they think that this is going to help stop or solve gun violence. At least the Garland and the Biden administration do. So they raised this stink that allowed the ATF to arbitrarily change the law without going through Congress. Well, the decision came out in favor of Mock. Okay, so here's what it means. It's a 9-page decision, basically. And what they're saying in this decision in no short order is that the ATF does not have the capability of doing what they tried to do here. That they do not have the power. They've never had the power, which we all knew and we know consistently. And with this, the judge actually cited several things. Now, if you listen to my little update that I gave Wednesday or Thursday, it was only like a 2 or 3 minute update. This is what I was talking about, the Mock v. Garland case where the pistol braces went away. Okay? Basically, that case is now, everyone that has a pistol brace is now covered by a national injunction. Now, we know that Solicitor General Preligar, I don't know how you say her name, she's Merrick Garland's foot soldier for doing this type of thing, is going to go ahead and try to do this type of thing again, going to appeal it. But here's something that needs to be known and something that should give you great hope. So this is a Fifth Circuit Court in Texas. These guys are consistently fighting in favor of the 2A because, well, that's how it's supposed to be, and they're doing their job. Okay? So they found for us, in the Mock v. Garland case. So they issued a nationwide injunction now. Well, when Merrick Garland goes to appeal this, there's this rule that says you have to appeal it in the same court that ruled against you. So they're going to have to go back to the Fifth Circuit Court, and they're going to have to plead their case again, which you can probably guess where that's going when this is already the one case where they lost in that same Fifth Circuit Court, saying they do not have the power. They're going to have to go to Congress to do this. And as tenuous as the Congress is right now, I don't see them being able to pass something that would have to call for unification from both sides. That said, there's always a turncoat on our supposed side and also some on the other side that will probably not go along with this or will go along with this. So be vigilant and make sure you know who your representation is and talk to them about this. Now, another case we won. So this is Vanderstock v. Garland. So Vanderstock v. Garland. What is going on with that? So what is it? It is the frame and receiver rule. So if you're not familiar with what that is, there was a case going through for devices like Polymer 80 and 80% receivers, AR receivers. They were trying to make these into firearms. Vanderstock sued them and won. So this case was thrown out also on the merit that you cannot do this. You do not have the power. You're changing words of what you've already said and has been passed through Congress. And that not only did they pass it in Congress with the language that it was in, Congress was very intentional in how they defined this, and they did it in such a way that you have to go back to Congress to redefine what a receiver is. Okay. What does that mean? 80% receivers are back on the menu and are now going to be able to be sold yet again. What that also does is it yet again is a huge blow, because that means that they're not going to be able to force you to serialize these 80% receivers or to track them or to do a background check for them. Yet again, this was a law or an attempt at making law that really had no real net effect. And why, in my opinion, is because of 3D printers. When you have 3D printers, once that signal was out, once those files became known across the globe, there's no way to contain them again. This is why record stores went away. You know, record stores used to be a thing because we only had one way to get the media, the record or album we wanted was to go to these record stores to get them. Napster destroyed that. Okay? That's where the streaming services started coming into play. They had to figure out a way that would make it marketable for mass media or for the mass community to purchase these things without having to buy them wholesale for one or two songs and still earn a little bit of money from that rather than people just pirating these things. Well, fast forward, 20 years, because that's about when Napster and LimeWire and all those guys ended the music industry's grip on record stores. You're now seeing something similar in the 2A spaces. Technology's caught up. Democratization of technology has revolutionized the world. You being able to manufacture something, whether it's a gun, whether it's a cup, whether it's a plate, whether it's a part for a prototype that you're working on, it doesn't matter. The fact that that technology exists and there's nothing that can stop it. Now they're playing catch up to try to stop it. This 3D printing stuff, technology, the material science is caught up enough to where they're actually pretty good and pretty decent replicas or replication of the original item. So much so that they'll take the pressures that once weren't a thing. When the Liberator 2 pistol came out, and I call it the Liberator 2, I think they call it the Liberator pistol, period. But to me, the original Liberator was the one we dropped behind enemy lines in France and all across the globe during World War II. It was a gun to get another gun. Well, the Liberator 2 was a polymer version of this that Cody Wilson produced. And it was good for 1 or 2 shots at best before the barrel was shot out and before the materials actually corroded and basically blew up because of the pressure. Fast forward again, 10, 15 years, material science has caught up. Technology has caught up. We have polymer and carbon fiber impregnated polymers, which are stronger. So it's like nylon polymer nowadays. And we're able to get those on regular desktop 3D printers. We're able to use those materials. That means that a lower receiver for an AR-15 is 100% 3D printable now. And what can you do about it? Because even if you couldn't find the files, there's enough people with enough knowledge base now that can sit back, render something in CAD or render something in another piece of software and drop it down to be printed. And that isn't just with AR-15s. You're seeing newer and newer things come out in this space. You're seeing the Polymer 80 receivers for Glocks and SIG pistols are a thing. They've been a thing for a while. And now that you can print them wholly, and you can just use the parts that you can buy over the web or through a catalog or whatever to make a handgun, how are they going to stop that? Simple answer is they can't, but they're going to try their damnedest. The signal's been sent. The days of them being able to regulate firearms, as Cody Wilson likes to say, and he has a tombstone for gun control. Gun control is dead. It died when the 3D printer started becoming ubiquitous. And there's not a damn thing that the federal government can do to regulate it or make it any better. What do they need to do? What we've said in the 2A community for years. You need to address the core root problems of where gun violence comes from. Gun violence doesn't come from the gun. The gun is an inanimate object of plastic and metal or wood and metal. That's it. It's not capable of doing anything harmful on its own. It takes someone to do that harmful act. So where do we fix the problem? Well, number one, we need to address the elephant in the room that we've said time and time again, or I've said time and time again here, is the mental health problem. What's causing people to lose their damn mind? Okay. Is it fatherlessness? Is it the lack of God, a higher power in their life? Is it the lack of care and concern of society? Is it all of them? I would argue it's kind of all of them nowadays. Add to it that we have a social economic system where it's easier to perpetrate violence to gain access to some resource than it is to actually learn how to get said resource through legitimate reasons or legitimate means. Meaning, it's easier to become a criminal than to get a job in a lot of places across this country and across the world. How do we fix those issues? Looking to the government to fix issues in our country and across the world is kind of a half effort. It's not our best effort. Why is that? Anyone who has lived through the last 5 years of the United States, in the United States or across the globe, have seen their government fail in major ways. We watch people slip through the cracks through the educational process as they were forced to go online to learn. Some people accelerated that, some people didn't. Those that didn't got left farther and farther behind. Some people lost their jobs because the federal government or the governments in the globe told everyone that they had to shut down. You know, what do we need to do? It's going to take all of us to make those little ripples that become waves over time. Because without all of us trying to pull in the same direction or pull towards the greater good of humanity. Now, some people will tell you, is humanity worth saving? I'd argue it is. You cannot see the awesomeness of what we deal with in the 2A. You know, the designs, the material science. without seeing the inherent goodness of what men and women can do, what the human condition does. If you're a fan of the 2A in any way and are using any device that's been created in the last 300 years, you know that we have some sort of artistry even when we're trying to make something, to destroy something, or to defend ourselves. Now, a lot of people will say that these devices are made to destroy things. Are they really, or is it the intent behind what the person is doing is causing that destruction? I would argue that a gun, and I think all of us would agree, is no more difficult or destructive than a car. You know, it's what you do with that technology, what you do with that knowledge, what you do with that piece of equipment matters. So a gun to me is just like shooting a bow. You know, a bow was something to put food on our table back in the day. It's also something for us to defend ourselves. Guns no different. Yet they're seen as two different types of things nowadays. You know, I'm pretty sure that a golf club can be just as deadly as a gun in the right circumstances. But golf's seen as a great thing. What's different about that in the 2A? You know, I know a lot of shooters that play golf. I know a lot of shooters that the last thing that they ever want to do, and they pray they never have to do, but they train to, is to take someone's life. Why? Because we're not psychopathic killers. No one in the 2A who's an adamant advocate of the 2A is wanting to kill anyone. We want to defend ourselves. We want to be free. And the only way we know that that is 100% possible is by being armed so that no one can oppress you and no one can take away your God-given right to self-defense. Our founding fathers looked at the Second Amendment and said it was an inherent natural right. Shall not be infringed means that this right already existed. They're just codifying it and showing you that it was there. That is profound if you think about it. Because name another right that has that basic, innate piece of knowing it came from a natural state. That you have a right to defending yourself. By virtue of you simply existing, you have a right to exist. You have a right to stand up and say no. I would say your First Amendment right is guarded by your Second Amendment right, and all other rights guaranteed by our founding fathers and our Bill of Rights only withstand because of the teeth that are in the Second Amendment. So, while all of us have those black pill moments where we think time and time again, and we see time and time again we're getting trod on, we need to celebrate. We need to be grateful. And I'm grateful for having the opportunity to jump on a mic and talk to you all, even though I don't hear from very many of you. But I know you're out there. I'm thankful for you all listening. I'm thankful for my friends, my family, my new job. I'm thankful for my renewed faith, the reassurance that I'm seeing from humans to make me gain more faith in humanity again. We're winning. You're watching the left implode. So much so that the Secretary General of the, of the justice system is begging the Supreme Court to actually take into account other things than the Bruen decision. But the Bruen decision is pretty adamant about saying there has to be historical precedent about regulation. Regulation is the key word. And yet again, they're failing, they're losing, so they're whinging. Whinge harder because we're going to keep winning. Keep vigilant because the next thing on the radar is they're wanting to ban assault weapons. Quote unquote assault weapons. We don't even have a definition for assault weapon. A meat cleaver can be an assault weapon. A golf club, a towel, if it's used right, could be an assault weapon. What do they mean by an assault weapon? What they mean is it's a scary gun. It's a gun that has a pistol grip. It's a gun that has a heat shield. It's a gun that has a detachable magazine. None of these things add to its lethality. None of them. They're all just component pieces. Again, we're going to win because we have the Bruen decision behind us. We have the Heller decision, and we're time and time again getting them in the Supreme Court, in the court to line up with us. Keep the faith. Like, share, subscribe. Be great.